So a good pair of knee wraps, I have the Pioneer Phantoms. They lasted me 3 years and I'm still using them. I think a good pair of knee wraps can last a very long time. I've seen some real crappy ones, and usually I can tell because some zigzags to them. They start to look like the material is not as strong. That's when I would get a replacement. And like I said, Pioneer Fit and Elite FTS probably make the best wraps. I don't like the Iron Rebel wraps. The Inzer wraps are pretty good too if you like. Are pretty stretchy. But those are the three companies that I've used personally and that I recommend. Like I said, Iron Rebel, I've seen some of their wraps and none of them have impressed me and usually don't last very long. So food inflammation is just the way that your body responds to certain foods that you consume, usually in the form of carbohydrates seem to be the most inflammatory, especially if you have some type of autoimmune disease. How would you know if you have it? Just be this feeling of like achiness throughout your body, maybe some gut issues, maybe some constipation, but just a feeling of just very achy joints, very achy body would let you know that the inflammation is there. Why would you want? You wouldn't want to have it. You'd want to diminish it. By doing that, you just want to find foods that don't create those issues. So not every carbohydrate is going to create that issue. So you'll notice it. Just pay attention to how you feel after you eat certain foods, and then just focus on those foods that don't create that type of feeling. And then also high anti-inflammatory foods like fish oils, fish, things of that nature, healthy fats, that'll help diminish. So the research will show that it'll help in the case of endurance athletes, but in the case of maybe strength athletes or bodybuilding athletes, the data doesn't really confirm that it's actually very helpful. Personally, from my own experience, I think it's very helpful in your ability to recover. And you can talk to a lot of guys who will say the same things. They've taken it and they feel like they're better recovered the next couple days. And then if they don't take it, so anecdotally, I would say it's pretty important. Most people that use it love it and live by it. Is it necessary? Not really, especially if you're dieting. You'd rather have those calories come from whole foods. But I do definitely, it can be a valuable part in your nutrition recovery plan if you have those calories available for that. If not, you still want to supplement with some type of essential amino acids and something along those lines to help with recovery. So tips for cutting on a strength phase, like I've said previously, probably not the best time to cut, but if you have to, I would recommend doing it with a little bit more of a higher volume, so not during a peak-in. Even in a strength phase, the volume should be decent, not necessarily super high that would elicit the best response while cutting. And then if you're going to do it in a strength phase, I would say be very, very patient, make very slow, methodical change. Don't rush the process. You may notice that you'll make a diet change and that may last 4 weeks, 5 weeks. There may be a couple days where you gain a little bit of weight or you maintain weight, but then all of a sudden you hit that kind of whoosh effect and 2 to 3 pounds. So I would definitely give yourself time on a strength phase if you're cutting, and just be patient with the adjustments that you make. Don't make too drastic of adjustments, and then just kind of get the most out of it. Don't try to force a weight. So the first step in starting strength union, which is the first step in starting any business, is to figure out if there's a need for that business. You don't want to just start a business if there's no real desire or need for it, because then it's going to be an uphill battle the whole way. When I was initially thinking about starting strength union, I was at a disconnect with all the gyms that were around here. There wasn't any good powerlifting gyms or any good powerlifting coaches in Portland. And so that right there told me that there was a need for one. So once I realized there was a need for one, I figured out, well, what can I make a niche as far as my gym to make it successful, to kind of separate it from the other ones. And like I said, there's no really good coaches in Portland. So being able to coach people at the gym elevated the gym as far as its reputation goes. And then just having the best equipment. A lot of gyms around the area will settle for the cheaper stuff or won't even upgrade their equipment, where we went with Elite FTS and got some stuff custom made and just tried to make sure we had the best. So those were the first steps that I took when starting strength union, was just making sure that there was a need and a desire for the gym, and then how can I separate it from all the other gyms. And ever since then, we created it, and it's been pretty successful. So my mission statement is pretty simple, to help others in whatever capacity that I feel I am logical in doing so. So that means not stepping out my boundaries as far as a coach goes. Always trying to learn and stay educated so that I can help any athlete that comes my way. But being able to have the mindfulness to send them elsewhere if I can't complete the tasks to their best ability that they expect. So everything that I do, from the online business to coaching, owning the gym and the supplement company, is to provide the best amount of help I can give to people with the best products, the best education services, and the best coaching that I know how to. For me, being able to give back and help people live a more quality-driven life, and just focus in on those aspects of things. So for me, a good leader is someone that takes responsibilities and ownership for their actions and the actions of the people around them. They don't blame others for when things don't go their way. They just look at themselves and trying to figure out how they can do better and how they can make their team. So initially, when starting the online platform, I sold my gym in Florida and decided to move, and I needed to create an income, and I also wanted to help as many people as I possibly could, and having that online platform gave me that opportunity. But I also didn't have a reputation for being a coach or a good athlete at the time, so what I did was I just reached out to a handful of people and offered to coach them for free, and if I did a good job, then they would promote. So I did that for a little over a year of just kind of working for free for people and giving them programs and building them up and helping them get better. And as they got better, the reputation started to grow and the business started to grow. But it initially started with a lot of free, which I didn't mind because it allowed me to kind of perfect my craft and figure out if I could actually do it effectively. And I'm very thankful for those people that gave me that opportunity, just like I'm still thankful for the people that pay me to coach them now. They trust me, and I've had maybe what I would consider 2 mentors. One was in Denver, Colorado, when I lived there. I talked about him on the podcast with Dr. Jordan Shallow, RX Radio. He was the first people that ever challenged me and questioned my beliefs and made me question them myself. And that type of outlook on life was something that I had never thought of before until I met him. So being able to meet him and allowed me not only to do things differently, see things differently, but experience life and cultures differently. And that was the first mentor. Then really my second mentor was probably Jesse Burdick, who's helped me a lot with in terms of lifting, being a good person, in terms of creating a living off of this and kind of finding a better purpose. He's one of those people that have really opened my eyes to how to treat others and just being able to pass that on. As of right now, I don't have anyone close enough to me that I say would be a mentor, but I do have a lot of people in my life that I respect, that I reach out to if I ever need anything, and I'm very grateful for those. And I think it's really important to surround yourself with people like that, that give the opportunity, can help you out, but you can also help them out as well. It's not a very one-sided affair when you're trying to build a great relationship. So I highly recommend people seeking out mentorship from others and not being afraid to pay for it. They're willing to give you their time. You should be willing to pay for it, and if they accept it, then they accept it. If not, then that's even better. So my current post-workout meal is cereal, usually like Lucky Charms, Fruity Pebbles, with about 30 grams of whey isolate, and then I'll do Thermotabs, which is electrolyte, ashwagandha, sympathetic state, and more into that rest and digest state, so that when I do eat my food, it assimilates well, doesn't upset my stomach, and that I'm ready to go for my next meal when the time comes. And those are just really focused on just kind of parasympathetic recovery and just get me as fully recovered as possible post-workout. And that's one of the biggest things I focus on post-workout, is just parasympathetic, trying to pull everything back down. I would say the same jumps you make in training would be the ones that you attempt in a meet. So if you're used to taking bigger jumps in training, you can take bigger jumps in a meet. If you're used to taking smaller in training, then take smaller jumps in a meet. There are other benefits to intermittent fasting, but from a strictly like dieting perspective, it's just calorie control. The other stuff is a little bit more health related and longevity related, but as far as like for calories and weight loss, it's just calorie control for fasting. So there are a few people that I talk to and reach out to if I have questions. So if it's like health related or bodybuilding related, I'll talk to Austin Stout. I talk to Trevor Jaffe a lot about things, and then obviously I talk to Kaylee a lot about stuff. So those are the people that I kind of talk to the most. Right now, I'm in a time in my life where I try to do as much inner dialogue as I possibly can to solve problems and to learn. It's more or less be immersed in the process of life and all that comes with it. And I think that when you reach out to too many people and you try to get too many guidelines of what you should do with your life, you're not really living your life anymore. So I just try to focus on trying to solve. Depends on why the person had to take 6 months off of training. In your specific case, being pregnant and taking time off of training, I think the strength will come back relatively faster than you think, I'm sure. There's a lot of good research that shows people that take a long time off get some of their hypertrophy gains and strength gains back pretty fast. The whole muscle memory type deal. So I think it'll come back faster than you think it will. Just be patient and don't get frustrated if things don't feel right for a little bit. They'll start to click again, and just stay persistent with it and stay consistent, and you'll get there back sooner than you think, probably sooner than 4 or 5 months. Or percentages. You don't want to dig yourself into a deeper hole and continue to manifest the sickness and make it worse. So you have to remember that whenever you train, you deplete your system even further. So if you're really sick, I tend not to train at all. Just focus on recovery and getting better. And if you're kind of sick and you still feel pretty good, you can go train, but I don't think that everyone who trains in person should start an online business. Online training's a little bit harder in the sense that communication through email is very, very hard and difficult to do. So just making sure that you communicate your thoughts in a way that is easy to access for other people. If you're giving coaching cues, if you're given any type of video analysis, you want to make sure that you can break it down in a way that anyone... So those would be the two things that I would look for if you want to do online training, is just ask yourself, are you a good communicator? And two, do you enjoy being at home most of the time, sitting on the computer doing work? So the question I would ask is not necessarily what's my favorite way of splitting up training, but what would facilitate that person's goals the best. There's no one training split that's going to be the best for everyone. Variables like their work schedule, their ability to recover. So I always think about setting up training programs in order for people to fully facilitate recovery on a day-to-day basis. So that would take into consideration things like their stress factor, their lifestyle, sleep, diet. All those things are going to dictate their training age, their actual age. All those things will dictate whether or not they can handle certain training splits. For beginners, full body splits are great, but I know experience. So don't get enamored with what training split's going to be best. Just focus on training as hard as you can and being able to recover from the split that you're doing or the split that you're giving other people to do. Depends on what your limitations are. For a lot of people, it could be ankle flexibility. It could be stability within the hole. If you're not stable, your body's not going to be too excited to get down there with the load on your back. So those would be I tend to focus on a lot with lifters, but it is person dependent. I would just focus on what is causing the inability to hit depth and just work on that through stretching, through stability drills, through focusing on eliminating the issues that are causing you to not hit depth in the squat. Then you'll tend to start to feel a little bit better and a little bit more comfortable. But I guarantee you it's probably some type of stability issue where your body's not feeling comfortable getting down. So for grip, I think a lot of people neglect their pinky, right? Because their pinky is what causes a lot of grip strength. So if you're able to get your pinky stronger and your digits stronger, that'll start to help with your grip. Also supinate your arm better, your underhand. That'll help out a lot. I know a lot of guys, especially bigger guys, have issues with being able to supinate their hand, and if you can't supinate fully, then your pinky's not going to be on the bar as much as you want it to. So just focusing on those supination of the underhand, and then also digit strength, focusing on one digit at a time, specifically the pinky, and getting those stronger will help out a lot. As far as meet day goes, you can also ice your hands, something that Chris Duffin would do when he cut a bunch of weight and then put weight back on. His hands would swell up. So being able to keep them cool and put them in ice as the meet goes on is very helpful for keeping your hands to not be as swollen. Personally, don't mess with sodium levels when doing water cuts. The less I can manipulate and still make water come off the body, the better it's going to be. Messing with the sodium, potassium pumps is going to inhibit your ability to focus on is just carbs and water manipulation, and leave sodium where it is. That way you don't have to worry about replenishing the sodium and the potassium afterwards as much as you would. The less you can worry about when water cutting, the better. The more you have to do during a water cut, the more likely you are to not have a good day on the platform. So I would just focus on manipulating a few small things and just having your weight at a good point in time about 8 weeks out.